Hi, and welcome to episode number 64 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. As always, I'm Sarah Senecroce, and I'm super grateful that you're spending this time with me today for another amazing episode. I just got back from a 3-day self-care and wellness weekend in Portugal, together with two very close friends and fellow entrepreneurs. We treated ourselves to this weekend of recharging and taking care of our bodies and minds. And it was just simply amazing. My favorite part was when the lady who did the chakra meditations with us confirmed to me that my intuition was right and that I'm on the right path. And of course, I thought of my epiphany moment and my gentle business revolution idea. But back to today's episode. Today's guest is Dorie Clark. And if you had told me 2 years ago that I would one day interview Dorie Clark on my podcast, I would have probably told you to get lost. But funny how we have this perception of always not quite being enough or being on the same level. And it reminds me of the quote that I have sitting on my desk. And it says, set a goal so big that you can't reach it until you become the person who can. It's often a question of confidence, isn't it? Usually that's what it is. So needless to say that I was doing the happy dance when Dorie accepted the invitation to be a guest on my show. So for those of you who don't know Dorie yet, here is her official bio. Dorie Clark is an adjunct professor at Duke University, Fuqua School of Business, and the author of Entrepreneurial You, Reinventing You, and Stand Out, which was named the #1 leadership book of 2015 by Inc. magazine. A former presidential campaign spokeswoman, the New York Times described her as an expert at self-reinvention and helping others make changes in their lives. A frequent contributor to the Harvard Business Review, she consults and speaks for clients including Google, Microsoft, and the World Bank. She's also a producer of a multiple Grammy Award-winning jazz album. So without further ado, I give you herewith my conversation with Dorie Clark. Hi, Dorie. How are you today?
Hi, Sarah. I'm good. Good to speak with you.
Yeah, good to speak with you too. It took us a while to get organized. And first it was me who canceled, and then you had something come out. So I'm super excited to talk to you today.
Yes, me too. Yeah, the good things are worth waiting for.
Exactly. Yeah. Wonderful. All right. So I just told the audience in the intro, the official bio, but they can find them on your website. I want to hear the real story about Dorie Clark. So tell my audience about, yourself, and also something that my introverted audience can relate to.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think probably the thing that they can relate to is that I am definitely an introvert, a probably extreme introvert. And so one of the challenges of the job that I have, where I spent a large part of my time on the road speaking and giving talks, probably, on average about 50 plus per year, and teaching business school and going around and talking about my books, is that I am constantly interacting with people. And of course, it's wonderful to meet interesting new people, and I like it a lot, but it does get really exhausting after a while. And so I have had to really think very consciously about and develop strategies for how, especially when I'm on the road and traveling and things like that, I can balance out my energy and make sure that I'm able to show up in the way that I want to, when it can be very hard to get time to recharge and time for myself.
Right. Yeah. So you're one of those introverts who likes the stage, because what I noticed throughout all these conversations I've had with fellow introverts is that there's about a 50-50. 50% love the stage, and that's where they're really comfortable. And then the other 50 are like, oh, no, not me. So some people actually say that they go into this different persona on stage. Is that what's happening with you?
I don't really go into a different persona on stage, I don't think. Actually, in many ways, speaking and, to a certain extent, being a center of attention in that way is a little bit of an adaptive strategy for me as an introvert. because the part that is really genuinely hard for me is socializing with strangers when I don't know anything about them and having to make small talk and having to sort of figure that out. That part is really awkward and uncomfortable. And I've found that it is actually much easier for me socially if I'm in a situation where I have been speaking, because then people come up to me and they already have things that they want to talk about. And so it really greases the wheels of the conversation. I can just, talk and follow their lead and have a good conversation and be nice and all of that. But I don't have to sputter for things to talk about with people. So it really facilitates things and makes it socially much easier for me when I have, in fact, been on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I realized too. It's like it's worth the effort if people then just line up to come and talk to me rather than being thrown into a room and having to, mingle and network. But you haven't always been, this sought after speaker. So tell us a little bit how you transitioned, because I think before you were kind of in these corporate positions, right?
Despite the fact that I speak at a lot of corporations and tell them what to do a lot, at least, I do my best to give my opinion about that. I actually have technically never really worked in a corporate job. My background is that after I did undergrad, I got a master's degree in theology, and then I went on to become a newspaper reporter. Then I worked on political campaigns. Then I ran a nonprofit. And then finally from there, I started my own business. So to the extent that you can say, well, being a journalist, maybe you're working for a company, okay, but I was never sort of part of the typical corporate experience.
Right. Yeah, because a journalist is still very independent, right? So you made your own rules in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wow. So tell us more about your speaking. That's one of your revenues, because my audience is always interested. Well, how do we generate revenue? And I know in your books, you also talk about creating different revenue streams. So if you would kind of share a little bit how your business model works, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I, over the past few years, have very consciously tried to build up additional revenue streams for myself, partly because I just believe ideologically that it is a really good way of doing business. It's a way to hedge against uncertainty. And also it increases your upside. Just you're doing more things, you're giving people more opportunities to buy. And so you can increase your overall revenues. But I've had to be very conscious of doing it over the past 5 years or so. And so I currently now have 9 different income streams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Tell us all about them.
Yeah, sometimes people might say, well, but, doesn't that pull you in too many directions, or isn't that too many different things? But as you'll see when I kind of tick through them, they're very symbiotic, right? And the goal for me is to create a flywheel where somebody coming in through one of those things may well be interested in doing another different thing. So you can get more repeat customers and more customer lifetime value.
Mm-hmm.
So the ways that I currently make money, first of all, the starting point was and is consulting. I do marketing and business strategy consulting for companies. In addition to that, I do executive coaching for individuals. I write my books now. That's not an incredibly lucrative way of making money in the scheme of things, but you do make some money from it. And it is a good driver of the next income stream, which is speaking business, where I travel around and do a lot of keynotes. I also do some business school teaching. And I additionally have online courses that I do. I have affiliate income where I promote courses or other products sold by colleagues to my mailing list. In the past year or so, I've developed a couple of new revenue streams. One is mastermind groups that I do, like year-long masterminds. And then additionally, I do shorter duration, like 1 or 2 day workshops.
Right. Are we at 9? I lost track.
That's 9, yeah.
That's 9, yay. Yeah, that's amazing. I think you really got that model down. And it's true, it does help us with feeling more secure because, if you have a month where, well, there's no coaching or there's no speaking gigs coming in, well, you still have all the other revenue streams helping you not feel panicky that, this month there's less. So that's great. And you can, with all the different things like the book and, the courses, you can touch different levels of people as well, right? It's not just, oh, I'm just working with the big guys at Google, right? You really make a difference, because that's what we're trying to do here, is make a difference and make the world a better place. And so with a book, well, you can reach a much wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. It allows you to kind of go broad, because there's people who maybe all they can afford or all they want to do at that particular time is just buy your book, which
Right.
is great. So they have like a $20 option. They can get a taste of your work, and you've provided value to them that way.
Right.
Fantastic. But in addition, if there's somebody that is really interested in it, they want to go deeper, they may buy the $20 book, but then say, well, I want to sign up for a workshop, or I want to sign up for private coaching.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're an executive at a company and they say, oh, well, maybe you should come in and speak for the company. And all of those things are great ways. You're just giving people further opportunities to interact with you in different ways.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right. So you have a lot of strengths, obviously, building these different revenue streams, building this business. We talked already about your superpower to talk on stage. What else would you say, as an introverted entrepreneur, is your biggest strength?
What I would think of as one of my biggest strengths is just really sheer persistence. People talk about that a lot. I want to be really clear about what I mean by it. And that is that, for me, one of the big drivers of my business success has been the so-called platform building that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
My efforts to sort of raise awareness about who I am and what I do. And primarily, I've done that through content creation. I think that's a good choice for a lot of people. But for me, it was not anything that I really at the time had a very conscious strategy about. But I had been a journalist. And so I thought, okay, well, I know how to write. I can write blogs or things like that. And I knew in kind of an amorphous way that it would help my business, but I wasn't sure exactly what form that it would take. But over the past 8 years that I've been really aggressively working this strategy, I have learned a lot about what the arc looks like. And what I have discovered, number one, is that content creation, and it doesn't have to be writing, but it could be video or audio like this or whatever, but somehow, if you want to be recognized in your field and really build a meaningful brand, I would argue that everyone needs to find a way to share content. That's one of the pillars that I talk about in my flagship online course, which is called the Recognized Expert course. And the reason is that, it's pretty basic, but if you do not share your ideas with people, people will not know what your ideas are, and they won't know if they're any good. They won't know if you're worth working with. So it's a way of giving people a private peek or a tutorial, kind of a test drive of what it would be like to work with you. So it makes it feel less risky for people to do business with you, and that encourages them to pay for your services and to seek you out. And so the trick is, most people will be like, oh, okay, I can see that, great. But they just don't persist. They give up after a while with whatever it is, the podcast or the writing, because they're not seeing immediate results.
Right.
And what I want to be clear with, you will probably not see almost any results for 2 to 3 years of regularly doing things. By regularly, I mean a couple times a week. It is an enormous amount of investment. People say, oh, well, should I even bother? It's too crowded, whatever. That doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of your work times the persistence and duration of it. Most people are not willing to work for 2 or 3 years with very little return. And so they stop. But the trick is, and I've seen this not just for myself, but for many, many other people, once you hit the 2 or 3 year mark, you do start to see meaningful results happening, new opportunities coming to you that wouldn't otherwise. Once you hit the 5 year mark, you start to see profound benefits, and you have really begun to create a competitive moat for yourself in the marketplace that becomes extremely hard for other people to match. And you have really dramatically up-leveled your business. But again, most people are not willing to take it that far. If you are, you will get great benefits.
Yeah, so true. And I think you're right. Maybe not all the introvert types, but I think at least 2 or 3 of the 4 are definitely, lucky in that way, because persistence is kind of, that's in our genes. When we do something, we do it right, we stick to it, and it's not given to everyone. I do the same kind of work with my clients on LinkedIn to help them position themselves as experts on LinkedIn so they get clients. And it's the same thing. It's all content based. And depending on the generation, I noticed that, the older generation, they're like, well, I did it for 2 months and it's just not working. Like, oh yeah, it's not like paid advertising where you pay and the result is immediate. This is, building your brand, building your business. And the benefit of that is that in the end, when you hit that 5-year mark, like you mentioned, you up level. You're no longer the person you used to be before. So now your prices are different and yeah, your presentation is completely different. So definitely see that as well. Yeah. What about a challenge that you still nowadays see related to your introversion? Obviously, the networking, maybe something else that you can think of?
For me, it's just the ever-present risk of running on fumes, in that I need to be interacting with a lot of people and I push myself to do it. For things like speeches, for instance, you're giving the talk, but then oftentimes people really do want to socialize with you afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to limit that as much as I can to protect my energy, but sometimes it's necessary. And, it's a good thing. It's a good thing if you're talking to senior leaders or people who are buyers or things like that. But it is highly possible and frequent for me that I'm just doing it back to back to back. And it kind of wears you down psychologically. And so I really have to think hard about ways to recharge, because otherwise, the quote unquote self-care really does get to the bottom of the list. And so I try to focus in and do things that are relaxing for me. I mean, for me, probably the best thing is reading. That kind of helps me calm down and reset. Also, where I can, I like to spend the night in my own bed and see my cats and
I was
things
just
like
going to
that.
say, yeah, traveling so much must be hard on you as well because, we're homebodies. So we like our own little space. So yeah, I can totally
Yeah.
understand.
It didn't really make a ton of sense to do this for other reasons, but as we're speaking today, I got back from a speaking engagement in Ohio last night, and I'm going to be on the ground for, I think, 21 hours, and then I fly out again. So I need to leave a few hours before that. So let's say I have, maybe 18 hours, most of those sleeping in my house before I literally head back to LaGuardia, which is exactly where I came from. That's a little silly, and I could have probably been more efficient just flying directly to the next location and maybe working from there for an extra day. But I knew it would be nice and it would feel more manageable for me if I could just come home and sort of touch base and see my little cats so they don't forget me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. Yeah, you really need to make sure that this is sustainable because we know as introverts, we give so much energy, I guess. You give so much energy during those speaking events that people often don't understand that you need to recharge. And they're like, oh, we're just now going to go to this business lunch or this and that. And you're like, oh, I just want to go back to my hotel room and recharge. So yeah, definitely make sure that you build in that self-care. So important. Take me to an aha moment. Tell us a story about a realization you had when all of a sudden everything was clear.
Just this week, I started a program that I'm doing, which is a 2-year-long program run by BMI, the music publishing house, that teaches you how to become a musical theater writer. This is something that is, not exactly in line with the rest of my professional activities, but it's something that I have been wanting to do. And the reason that I ended up doing it, about 2.5 years ago, I went to a show with a colleague of mine. I saw Fun Home on Broadway, which was really fantastic. It just sort of struck me. And so the next day, I went to bed, and then the next day I woke up and I just had this real certainty. I just had this very clear feeling like, oh, I should write musical theater. I should be doing this.
Wow.
And I didn't know how to do it. I never studied it. I'd never, frankly, been much of a fan of musical theater, but I really was struck with this feeling that I should be doing it. And so I started working on it and exploring it. It became this 2-year process. There's a program that I applied to, which I got turned down for, and then I applied again a second
There's
year,
the
and
persistence
I got
again.
in. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that is what I'm doing now. It's a very competitive, difficult to get into program. It's completely free. So anyway, I'm starting that now, but it really did come from this aha moment, I guess, of just
Mhm.
having a real sense of clarity that that's what I should be doing.
That's awesome. Well, introverts are also very good at just following their intuition. And so I think that was what was happening. You just knew that this is what you needed to do. And then you got out and did it. That's great. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. All right, let's talk about some more technical stuff. Like I always share 3 golden nuggets. And the first one is it's actually a personal habit, something that you do on a regular basis that you think contributes to your success.
Well, I was alluding to this before, but I will say, I mentioned that I am a big fan of reading, but specifically what I'm a big fan of reading is newspapers. I really
Mm.
love the news. And I feel like so many entrepreneurs, you kind of hear sometimes if you listen to a bunch of podcasts, people are like, oh, the news is a distraction. I like to do real things, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, God bless, people can do whatever they want. But I feel like if you are reading the right newspapers, actually high quality
Mm-hmm.
journalism like the New York Times or the Washington Post or something like that, this is eminently worthwhile. And it has just made me so much more culturally literate and culturally aware. It helps you connect to all kinds of different people if what's happening in their country, if that there's, certain issues that are big in their state or their community or their industry. Having been a former newspaper reporter, I have immense respect for the field and the people who are working in that field. And so I feel like reading the newspaper is something that is a great thing for everybody to do. I relish it every day.
That's great. Nobody has ever mentioned that. And I think you're right. The news are kind of getting a bad rep, especially in the US. But I think it's one thing to watch the news on the wrong channel, right? And another thing to read what you mentioned, high quality newspapers. So I can definitely see a benefit to that. Yeah. What about something that you use on the internet, like a resource, a tool that you would like to share?
Well, one that I use, given my travel schedule, a lot is called TripIt Pro. They have a free version, although I am willing to pay for the more expensive paid version. I think it's $50 a year. But it's super, super helpful in terms of organizing all of your travel information into one place very easily. So it groups it by trip. So if you've ever had to search for, what's your confirmation code on your flight? Oh, what's your confirmation code on your car? What's your confirmation code on your hotel? It's just all the stupid things. It's all in one place, really easy to access. And they are very, very plugged in and will, for instance, if your flight is delayed, they will notify you of that proactively and they'll, send you a little text message. Oftentimes, even before the airline will do so. So they have pretty fast information, which, if you travel a lot, you really need.
Yeah, that sounds like a lifesaver for, not missing planes and all of that. So great. I will link to that. What about some book? Obviously, we're going to link to your books, but if you had to pick someone else's book that you would recommend to the introvert biz growth audience, which one would it be and why?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly from the introvert angle, I'll give a little shout out to my friend Maura Aarons Mele, who wrote a book called Hiding in the Bathroom, which is
I heard about that.
a business book for introverts. She does great stuff. But a general book that I have really enjoyed, this one actually has not come out yet. This is just like a little preview,
Hmm.
but I just finished reading an advanced copy of it, and it's going to be really excellent. I just read a book called Loon Shots. It's like moonshots, but with an L, Loon Shots, by a friend of mine named Safi Bakal. It's going to be coming out next spring, and it is really going to be fantastic. It's a sort of sweeping look at the history of innovation and how the best innovations form. Really, really interesting stuff.
Wow, wonderful. Okay, so next spring, we'll give a shout out to, say the author again, Safi Dakal. Did I write that?
Yeah, Safi, Safi, and the last name is Bakal,
Bakal.
Bahcall.
Okay, wonderful. Make sure to link to that. Hopefully there's already a pre-order page up on Amazon. Otherwise, they'll just have to look for it themselves.
That's
Wonderful.
right.
I recently added a new question to my interview flow because I've been thinking about this topic called marketing with integrity a lot. And so I'd like to know from you, because you're a marketer, you're marketing your business. What does that mean to you, marketing with integrity? How do you apply that to your business?
I think it's critical in the sense that a lot of the work that I do, the books that I write, kind of either explicitly or implicitly are about the concept of personal brand and reputation and how you're seen in the marketplace and things like that. And when it comes down to it, your reputation really, really is everything. I guard that really quite zealously. So for me, it's not difficult, really. I think the challenge comes in where people, especially if they want to do, like, let's say, online marketing or something like that, they look to people who are experts, who have been successful in the past. And, for obvious reasons, people often say, well, let's learn from the people who know how to do it. And you see a lot of people who have been very successful at online marketing, and they will say, oh, what really works is, you send 25 emails to somebody in a week. And I don't doubt that that's true. They have numbers to back it up, and they do it because it works. That being said, a lot of these folks really don't care about the slash and burn nature of it. I am sure that on a overall sales basis, it works much better to send 25 emails than it does to send 2 emails. You will probably get a lot more money. However, it's sort of slash and burn because you're going to have a very high percentage of people that are angry and annoyed and never want to hear from you again.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your business model is, oh, well, who cares? Let's just get new customers, then, fine. But if you want to have a business model that is about long-term customer relationships, then, that's something different. And I'm a lot more interested in having a customer who is interested in spending whatever, $50,000 over the course of the next 50 years with me because they want to go to this workshop, that mastermind, this course, as opposed to somebody who buys one course for $1,000 or $2,000 and then, they hate your guts at the end of it because you've treated them like they're just sort of part of this marketing funnel. They're not really a person. Some people, though, might feel a little unsure of themselves and they say, oh, but these other people say it works and I really ought to do what works. And for me, I think it's really just a question of, are you thinking short term or are you thinking long term? And you want to treat people, as has been said for many thousands of years, you want to treat people the way that you would want to be treated. So I just try to adhere to that.
Yeah, it's so true. It's short term or long term or abundance thinking or scarcity thinking, because obviously oftentimes it comes back to money, right? Well, but I need money right now, so let me just send out this email and see who bites. Yeah, you can do that, but then again, you will have that reputation for the long term. Yeah, I totally agree with that. What I thought was very different on your coaching page, you have clear prices on your coaching page. So people go on your page, where it says work with me, and people know what to expect. There's no hidden things. I found that very different and refreshing. It's like, you want to work with me? Well, this is how much it costs. I don't think you see that very often yet. Or what do you think about that?
I think it's true. A lot of times people are hesitant to put their prices out there publicly. Partly that may be because their prices are actually much more flexible than they might want you to believe. And so they're willing to accept much less than maybe is their stated price. Or partly it's because they might have the attitude, well, I could kind of, upsell people. So let me get on the phone with them or whatever. But, at a certain point, I just felt like, all right, it's not in my interest or in anyone's interest to get on the phone with every single person. I don't want to make somebody feel blindsided or bad or embarrassed if they're like, oh, I could pay $50 an hour. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's a lot less than I charge. I didn't want to waste my time or make them feel bad. And I'm not interested in, having these like dramatically variable fees. Like if they want to do it at that price, fantastic. If they don't, it's okay. I have other sources of income, which kind of goes back to the original point of the conversation about multiple revenue streams. But I am a believer in transparency and simplicity about that.
Yeah, it's all these words: transparency, simplicity, integrity. And also it comes back to preserving our energy because, yes, obviously I think you would love to help everyone, but you just can't. So you have to preserve your energy and say, look, these are the prices, these are my conditions. And if it works for you, great.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to an end here. We need to wrap up. I could keep on going. I have lots more questions, but this one I ask to all my guests at the end, and it's, what are you grateful for today or this week?
I would say what I'm grateful for this week. I'm getting ready to head out to Toronto very soon, and I'm going to be having a meetup with a group of speakers that are, sort of part of this, like a Facebook group and kind of a community. And I'm very grateful for that, in that I have that, and then more broadly, just in general, I've built up a really great community of peers. I think everybody needs that, whether you're part of a formal mastermind or, just sort of like a Facebook community of any kind or whatever. But being able to have smart people that you can bounce ideas off of and learn from is really valuable in terms of taking your skills to the next level. And there were certainly times in my professional life where I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to go off and spend a couple of days learning from other smart folks is a great opportunity, and one that I really appreciate.
Yeah, it's so true. As introverts, we sometimes think, we don't need anybody. We don't need help. We're lone wolves, so we just do our own thing. But you're so right. Connection is just so important for us introverts too. So thanks so much for mentioning that. And say hi to my in-laws. They're in Toronto. So
Oh, nice.
We go there often too. Yeah. Well, this has been a great pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with my audience. Yeah, have fun in Toronto. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to have the chance to speak with you. And I'll just mention that for anyone that's interested in learning more about specifically how to create multiple income streams in your business, I do have a free resource that anyone can get. It's the 88-question Entrepreneurial You self-assessment, which helps you think through how to build multiple income streams in your own business. And folks can get that for free by going to DorieClark.com/entrepreneur.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes so people can click from their mobile devices right there too. Thank you, Dorie.
Thanks.
That's it for this episode of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. You can find out more about Dorie Clark on her website at DorieClark.com, where you can also download her free Entrepreneurial You self-assessment workbook. I just reread her book Stand Out and also highly recommended. I haven't mentioned it in a while, typical introvert, but if you like my show, I'd love for you to help me spread the word with your fellow introverted friends. Maybe you're a quiet leader yourself and have a platform where you can share today's episode. Maybe you're in a mastermind who would appreciate today's conversation. Or maybe you just need something to share with your own email subscribers. This too is part of the new gentle business revolution where we help each other. I'm hoping the content that I'm sharing is helpful to you. And if you feel like you want to give back, then a share or even a recommendation on iTunes would really be appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. This is Sarah Senecroce signing off from the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. Remember, you need to use your unique introverted superpowers in order to make a difference. Take care.